Build a team. At the beginning of my lifetime battle against Planned Parenthood, this behemoth had what you might call a financial edge. Roughly $1.3 billion in annual revenue compared to live action's nearly $0 in annual revenue. At the time, roughly half of Planned Parenthood's $1.3 billion budget was provided by taxpayers. I knew I would need all the help I could get. I needed a team. I was eager to take our undercover investigations to other states to show that abuses in the abortion industry were not limited to a couple of Los Angeles area clinics. From Mark Crutcher's expose of more than 800 Planned Parenthood facilities, and from court cases documenting how young girls had endured sexual abuse cover-up at abortion clinics, we had reason to believe that abortion clinics nationwide were turning a blind eye to statutory rape, and that Planned Parenthood was the greatest offender of them all. Hundreds of underage young girls were getting abortions every day, many at Planned Parenthood clinics. We knew from Crutch's work that the clinics, having disposed of the evidence, had few scruples about sending these girls back to the arms of their abusers, older boyfriends, stepfathers, mothers' boyfriends. Although I was busy with school and live action UCLA, I knew I had to do something more. There was little to no media coverage of the abortion industry, and even fewer critical stories. Although mainstream reporters did exposés on everything from the dairy industry to the treatment of restaurant workers, abortion clinics were rarely investigated. Yet, Planned Parenthood was in all our communities, receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from taxpayers, harming countless girls, and killing hundreds of thousands of babies every year. With the help of two friends, I began to brainstorm a larger plan, going across the country to investigate clinics during my summer break following my sophomore year. I knew such an investigation was possible, but it would cost money we did not have. To get started, I put together a budget, including travel costs for a 3-week investigation, per diems for the small team that would be on the road with me, a modest research budget, and equipment I thought we'd need. The total came to $40,000. Although I was still a novice in team building, I knew we needed to build a strong one. When I started live action, my goal was to develop an organization bigger than myself. In the classic book The Art of War, Chinese general Sun Tzu argued that the winner of the battle will be the general, whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. I needed to find animated teammates who, like me, were passionate about ending abortion and building a culture of life. Teams are powerful. As the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Although individual initiative is critical, leaders grow their organizations by surrounding themselves with talented, driven people who share their goals. Steve Jobs needed Steve Wozniak. Bill Gates needed Paul Allen. Paul McCartney needed John, George, and Ringo. Social reform movements also require teamwork. The goal of a movement is to make change. To do this, someone has to persuade people that change is needed. Persuasion is most powerful when many voices endorse, from their own unique experiences, the necessity of a given action. Leaders cultivate these voices by investing in the information of the formation of those on their teams, knowing that they, too, have the capacity to influence others. There's a popular TED Talk called How to Start a Movement by writer and entrepreneur Derek Sivers. Sivers used a funny video to illustrate how to draw people into a movement. The video shows a young man who begins to dance freely in public. His actions inspire other people to dance alongside him. As Sivers observed, the first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. Indeed, after one follower becomes 2, and 2 become 3, it isn't long before dozens of people are dancing. A similar principle applies to the history of social reform. By taking bold actions, leaders create a path for others to follow. These leaders, in turn, persuade other people to join them. Not even the greatest leaders of social reform, such as William Wilberforce, Martin Luther King, or Mother Teresa, could have succeeded alone. Powerful orators and activists, King and Wilberforce, used their words to inspire people to action. The soft-spoken Mother Teresa inspired people through both her profound words and her example. Leaders of social movements are effective only to the degree that they persuade others to join them in their causes. If would-be leaders do not learn to work with other people to accomplish their goals, they will not become leaders. Any team is larger than the full-time players. At UCLA, for instance, a dozen athletes play on the men's basketball team, but the larger team also includes the coaches and the trainers. A case could also be made that the marketers, the family members, the students, the alumni, the fans, and the boosters are part of the team as well. It is up to the players to work in harmony to win the game. But the larger community provides the support, the guidance, and ideally, the funding that enables the athletes to play well. To hire an investigative team, I needed money, and I realized that no one would contribute to our missions unless we asked. I knew that if Live Action had the resources to travel nationally and document how abortion facilities cover up statutory rape, we might be able to raise awareness about abortion in a way that had not happened before. On the basis of that awareness, we could build enough political pressure to end public funding of the abortion industry. It was clear that our next step was fundraising, but we also faced an unusual obstacle in that regard. In order for our efforts to succeed, we had to keep them a secret. I needed to somehow raise $40,000 to cover the cost of the investigation while telling almost no one what the funds were for. Fortunately, Providence was at work. A few weeks prior to our brainstorming session, I had met with a potential donor named Larry, a very tall man with a kind face, at a speaking event in Washington, D.C. that I had been invited to after one of its organizers heard a radio interview I had done. We exchanged business cards, and he told me they would be happy to help me if they could. I didn't know exactly what form that help might take, but I learned he was a board member for several other nonprofits and was very generous. He also lived in Southern California, an hour from UCLA. Lacking any formal training in sales or fundraising, I read every fundraising book I could get my hands on and researched online how to make an ask. I put together a written proposal and put the budget in a format that I thought looked professional. Even though I would be sharing the proposal only with a handful of potential supporters, I kept much of the information vague. We could not risk a leak to the opposition. Once the proposal was completed, I emailed the donor and asked if we could meet. He agreed and said he would put together a luncheon and recruit some friends who he often teamed up with to sponsor good causes. He suggested we all meet at a country club in Orange County. Having no car, I asked Christina, my curly-haired and ever-loyal roommate, friend, and fellow pro-life activist, to drive with me to the meeting on the following Saturday and be my wingwoman at the lunch. She was my core team, and this would be one of many escapades throughout college that Christina made possible with her unflagging support. The potential donor had said the dress code was Newport casual, and that we would be having lunch. I knew jeans were out of the question, but otherwise I had no idea what Newport casual meant. Having been the girl in high school who loved shopping at thrift stores, I was at a loss. I tended to improvise outfits that weren't necessarily fashionable, but that I found eclectic and cute. I liked patterned tank tops, oversized jackets, and bohemian-style dresses. As a student at UCLA, my clothes blended in well enough with the other 40,000 varieties of preppy alternative, grunge, fast fashion, and other styles found on campus. But when it came to a fancy donor lunch, doing a TV interview, giving a speech at a political event in Washington, D.C., where I was the youngest person by at least 20 years, it was hard to know where to start. In high school, I had to dress for speech and debate tournaments, but the black slacks, striped button-ups, and ties I wore to those events had long ago been donated to Goodwill. The week before the meeting, I went through my closet trying to find a suitable outfit. No luck. I had no casual business clothes, just a long-sleeved, heavy-knit black dress from Aunt Taylor Loft that felt more appropriate for an East Coast funeral than a spring lunch at a Southern California country club. Plus, it made me appear as if I were trying to look twice my age. Christina's older sister ran her own company and had grown-up clothes. She gave us permission to look through her closet to see if there was anything appropriate that fit me, but everything was either too big or too long. Being busy all week with classes and homework, we didn't have time before Saturday to shop. Instead, we decided to wait until Saturday morning before the lunch to find our outfits. I'd bring the black dress along as a backup. That Saturday morning, we got an early start at Target, hoping to find something inexpensive but cute that somehow said country club casual. I didn't really have any money to be spending on clothes, but that didn't matter to me. I was ready to spend my last red cent on this opportunity. Hustling through each aisle of the women's section, I finally found a white and black striped dress, a pair of heeled sandals, and a matching purse made of faux straw that looked beachy but classy. $113 later, I headed to the Target restroom to get dressed in my new outfit, leaving the tags hidden underneath the dress because I didn't have scissors to cut them off. Mission accomplished. We drove to a Kinko's to print out our presentation materials and made it to the country club parking lot minutes before our scheduled lunch. Whew. We carefully cruised past a BMW, an Escalade, and a gleaming red Ferrari. I motioned for Christina to keep driving straight to the very back of the lot, despite the ample open spots up close. We parked her beat-up Toyota next to a hedge. Before exiting, I opened the book Making the Ask to remind myself of one of the core lessons of asking. Once you've discussed your goal and confirmed your donor's excitement about it, simply state what the project will cost and ask them to help you accomplish it. And then be quiet. Let there be an awkward pause if necessary, but allow the donor to speak next. That silence is necessary to get the donor to commit. If the would-be donor does not commit at the meeting, it will be much harder to get a commitment later. A little nervous, Christina and I walked into the country club. The lobby floor gleamed, but the gourmet chocolates, wrapped in luxurious foil, sitting in a crystal bowl, on the beautiful walnut-stained check-in counter caught my eye. Always on the hunt for treats, I made a mental note to snag a few on the way out. We gave the name of our host at the front desk and were escorted to a private room where several couples waited to greet us. I said hello to Larry, whom I had met in Washington, and he introduced us to his wife, Margie, a soft-spoken woman with a beautiful smile, and to his group of welcoming and well-heeled friends. One woman particularly impressed me. Beautifully dressed, she wore multiple strands of sparkling necklaces, and had bright blue eyes and a warm, inviting expression. If Orange County had a queen, she would have been a leading candidate for the role. Later, both the tall donor and his wife and this elegant woman, Kim, and her husband Tom, would become my dear friends. But at the moment, I quietly thank God that I was wearing a short-sleeved, light-colored poplin dress, and not a black one fit for a funeral. We sat down for lunch. While Christina and I awkwardly picked at our tuna niçoise salads, these very nice people asked about our activism, our school, and our families. After 45 minutes of small talk, I wondered when or if I would get to hand out my plans and make the big ask. I grew increasingly nervous. Maybe I had misunderstood the donor's intentions, and he and his friends wouldn't be donors after all. Maybe I should have just ordered the hamburger. One of the hosts, a businessman in a well-tailored suit, took the lead. He suddenly stopped the chit-chat and said to me, "Okay, what do you want to do?" With adrenaline kicking in for the big pitch, I started explaining our goal. I told him and the others how we could help change the national conversation on abortion if we could expose the many abuses of Planned Parenthood, starting with their cover-up of statutory rapes. I expressed my confidence that we could get the evidence in just a few weeks if we had the resources to assemble a team. I kept talking and talking, feeling more and more nervous by the minute. All the while I was thinking, should I keep talking? When exactly do I ask for money? I handed out the flyers and kept talking, detailing my plans and justifying my budget. In my nervousness, I forgot to make the dramatic pause I had practiced. I just kept talking. Finally, the businessman interrupted me. Lila, we get it. You don't need to keep talking. We're gonna give you the money." A lump grew in my throat, and I almost burst into tears. It seemed too good to be true. Looking back, I see how generous and patient our hosts were. I also realized how amateurish my efforts were. A dozen or so years later, these donors have become friends and comrades, key members of our team. I've come to believe that when people want to give, they give. They need to be offered the opportunity and have that opportunity explained, but the most enduring supporters will be those who are all in. Even so, selling them a big idea and then pressuring them to donate at a lunch or dinner is not a useful long-term strategy. Some fundraising experts may disagree, because they think a hard sell is just as viable for a nonprofit as it is for, say, a car dealership. But I have not found high-pressure tactics to be effective over the long term. I would learn later how each of these generous people had been dedicated to the fight for life and family for years, and they were eager to encourage a new generation of activists. Seeing how passionate I was to make a change in a world where so few changes had been made, they wanted to help. They were willing to take a risk on a bold plan with a 19-year-old girl who had little experience, but lots of nerve. Whatever cause you are fighting for, there will be others out there who agree with you and want to help. It's likely they've been working to solve the same problem or a similar one, and it's possible they started that work long before you did. Finding them is key. To fight a Leviathan takes a team, and it can take a lot of trial and error to build a team. Thanks to our donors from the country club, Christine and I had already raised the $40,000 we needed. Now it was time to put together a road team to go beyond California and expose the fact that Planned Parenthood's sexual abuse cover-up wasn't limited to 2 Los Angeles abortion clinics. I started going through a list of my high school friends in my mind, thinking through which ones might be interested in helping. Were they already committed to the pro-life cause, or if they weren't, would they be willing to get involved? I also thought about what gifts my friends had and how they might contribute to our mission. Eventually, a childhood friend who had a talent for acting agreed to come with me to pose as another underage girl. Another gifted friend who had a passion for filmmaking agreed to be our cameraman. We still needed a trip lead, someone to drive, manage the logistics, handle the equipment. The lead needed to be discreet, detail-oriented, trustworthy, and old enough to have a car insurance, which was 25 in California. That person also had to be able to take 3 weeks off with little pay. Oh, and they had to be willing